Hi guys, this is Prince from GG and Prince, and today we're going to be doing a branded deck profile. So this deck is a bit different than the fusion-oriented branded decks you'll see in that it also has some synchro capability. So as we go through the deck list, you'll see what I mean by that, but you're primarily going to be using your fusion lines to build up a resource pool and get resources cycling between your deck, hand, extra deck, and graveyard while whittling away at your opponent's resources. Then you can use that graveyard setup for some synchro plays into some very powerful boss monsters to go in for the kill. So to start off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of the main man himself, Fallen of Albaz. You're actually going to be using his on-summon effect quite a bit, or at least attempting to fuse away some of your opponent's monsters. So that's why we play 3 of him, and of course, he is also great at unlocking plays if he's in your graveyard. Next, we're playing 2 copies of Blazing Cartesia, the Virtuous. Her quick effect to be able to fusion summon is great, and importantly, she's also a 4-star tuner, which is going to help synchro summon into some of our level 10 plays along with our level 6 bestials. For some more tuners, we're also playing Guiding Quem, the Virtuous. She's also great for some graveyard setups, since on summon she lets you dump a Fallen of Albaz or any card that mentions him from deck to the graveyard. So it's great for graveyard setup and again is a level 4 tuner. Next we're playing one of the key starters of the deck, Aluber, the Jester of Despia. So no big surprise here since this is a branded deck. This is your primary searcher for branded fusion, or if you already have branded fusion, for any of your branded spell or traps that you might need. He's also a primary target for branded opening, which we'll get to later, since that'll allow you to special summon Aluber and get his on-summon search. Next, we're playing a couple of one-ofs for branded fusion support. So we're playing 1 copy of Albion, the Shrouded Dragon. He helps in terms of draw power and also seeding your graveyard with Fallen of Albaz, since he is an Albaz on the field and graveyard. We're playing 1 Tri-Brigade Mercourier. It's a monster negate hand trap, and also if it's banished, you can search a Fallen of Albaz or any monster that mentions it from deck to hand. So nice dual purpose there. 1 copy of Springans Kitt. So this is special summonable if you have a fusion monster that mentions Albaz in your graveyard or on your field, and on summon lets you recycle one of your branded spells or traps, even from the banish zone. So this is actually pretty useful if one of your key spells like Branded Lost or Branded Regained gets banished. This is one way to recover that. Lastly, for the one-up supports, we're playing 1 copy of Despian Tragedy. So if this is sent to the graveyard or banished, lets you add a Despia monster from deck to hand. So this could be your Aluber or your Guiding Quem. So just mainly another pass for Aluber, but if you're going into a synchro line, having Quem on hand is very useful. Next, we're also playing a couple of bestials. So not a super large bestial package, but just enough to get things moving. So we're playing 2 copies of Lubellion. I did mess around with 3, but you're able to pull him out of the deck pretty regularly with Branded Fusion, and also dump him with Saronir's effect and some other cards that allow you to see the graveyard. So 2 will suffice. 1 copy of Magnamhut, because he's a great searcher, allows you to get any dragon monster you want to your hand. 2 copies of Bystial Druiswurm. I did toy around with 1 copy of this, but he's a great interruption and also pairs well with some of the branded continuous spells and traps that we have in this deck. So I bumped him up to 2, and again, the more bestials you have, the more synchro material you have, since they're 6s and your tuners are 4s, allows you to get into your level 10 plays. Lastly, for the bestials, we have 2 copies of Saronir and 1 copy of Bystial Aluber. So Saronir is the primary method to dump your branded spells or traps to the deck, or to the graveyard, sorry. He also lets you seed your graveyard with Druiswurm or Lubellion for follow-up plays. Aluber actually is both a bestial and counts as a Fallen of Albaz in the graveyard. So this will also help you unlock a lot of your plays, since he can be dumped off of Saronir's effect, and is also a level 4 tuner. So this helps, again, get into your synchro plays. That's it for the monster lineup. Let's go to the spells. So for your spells, we're going to start off with no surprise here. 3 copies of Branded Fusion, probably the most powerful spell you have in your deck. It allows you, one, to siege your graveyard, mill your deck, and also get into your fusion plays. So pretty powerful card here. Even though this deck does have Synchro capability, Branded is primarily a fusion-oriented archetype, and this is one of the key cards there. Continuing with the fusion theme, we have one copy of Branded in red and one copy of Branded in white. If you can't get to your Branded fusion but do have these cards in hand, they could be useful. So Branded in red lets you pull a Aluber or a Quem out of your graveyard and then fusion summon. Plus it's a quick play, so it can be used as an interruption during your opponent's turn. And then Branded in white, pardon the glare, is also helpful. It's basically super poly, but allows you to banish, a regular polymerization, but allows you to banish from the graveyard as well if you're using Albaz as a material. We're then playing 3 copies of Branded Openings. This is a pretty important starter spell. It allows you to summon your Aluber or your Quem directly from your deck. So really another way to get to Branded Fusion. It does lock you into fusion summoning after it resolves. So if you are summoning Quem, just keep in mind that you're not going to be able to use her for Synchro plays that turn. We're also playing 1 copy of Branded in High Spirits, another quick play starter. So this does not lock you into fusion summoning, but it allows you to 1, siege your graveyard and also search your deck for a Fallen of Albaz or a monster that mentions him. Next, we're playing a couple of continuous spells, Branded Regained and Branded Lost. So the way I like to think about these are great for building up your resources. So Branded Regained lets you summon a Bystial from your graveyard whenever your opponent summons. So this is, one great target for this is having a Druiswurm in your graveyard. Allows you to get, a target send during your opponent's turn. Branded Lost, 1, protects all of your fusions from getting negated, and 2, also lets you add a Fallen of Albaz or a monster that mentions him from deck to hand whenever you fusion summon. So both are great for research, building up resources. Regained also, importantly, whenever a light or dark monster is banished, you can return that monster to the deck and then draw a card. So this helps, even if you want to banish an extra deck monster, this can return to extra deck. And then obviously, recycle cards from banish to your main deck as well. We're next playing 2 copies of Fusion Deployment. So this is to help pull out your Albaz directly from the deck, or even your Blazing Cartesia. This is a double-edged sword because you are locked into fusion summoning the turn you activate this card. So do be careful, when using it. I primarily have used it to get Albaz from the deck and use its on-summon ability to fuse away, a problematic extra deck monster on my opponent's field. We're then playing one of our key board breakers. So we're playing 3 copies of Super Polymerization. It's a great card. You can set an Albaz, activate Super Poly, and your opponent can't do anything to stop you. So this is a great board breaker. And as you'll see throughout the theme of this deck, we're not playing very many hand traps. Actually, no hand trap monsters. The thinking behind this deck is let your opponent do what they're going to do, and then break their board and go in for the kill. Next, we're playing just a handful of staple spells. A Foolish Burial, again for help to siege your graveyard. Called by the Grave, it's great for stopping some of your opponent's plays as well as protecting your own plays from Ash Blossom, since Branded Fusion does lose to Ash Blossom. And lastly, a Harpie's Feather Duster to help with back row removal. That's it for the spells. On to the traps. So we don't have too extensive of a trap lineup, but they are quite powerful. So we're playing 1 copy of Branded Beast. This pairs really well with Druiswurm. You can tribute the Druiswurm, get a pop, then Druiswurm's effect goes off, and you can target and send a monster. So it's a 2-for-1 there. This is probably the main card that you're going to want to be placing with Lubellion's effect during your main phase. Although Branded Lost and Branded Regained also are options. Next, we're playing 2 copies of Branded Retribution. I did toy around with playing 1 copy of this, but this card has so many uses in this deck. So, 1, it's counter trap negate. So anytime your opponent activates a spell, trap, or monster effect that, would special summon something, you can negate and destroy that card. The cost to activate that is to return a fusion monster from your field or 2 from your graveyard that mentioned Fallen of Albaz. So if your extra deck's running thin because you've milled your extra deck or you've used Mirrorjade's effect already, this helps replenish your extra deck with monsters that are already in your graveyard. So it's really helpful in terms of getting the resources flowing between, like I mentioned, extra deck, graveyard, and deck. Also, you can banish this from your graveyard to return one of your branded spells from graveyard to hand, so it helps in terms of recyclability. We are playing some powerful spells like Branded Regain and Branded Loss, and if your opponent takes care of those with a Harpies or a Cosmic Cyclone or some sort of removal, this card can help recycle that back. Next, we're playing actually two of our few hand traps in the deck, 2 Imperms or Infinite Impermanence. So it's a great monster negate. Again, you don't really need too many hand traps in this. Your monsters really do the brunt of the work. But it's a staple, very useful, and it does come up at times. And lastly, we're playing another very powerful board breaker, 2 copies of Evenly Matched. Again, Super Poly and Evenly Matched are your primary board breakers here. You let your opponent do what they're going to do during their turn, and then, make them deal with your board breakers on your turn. Set up a field full of negates or interruptions, and then, control the game that way. So really getting your resources going and getting the flow of resources going is the primary way this deck wins duels. That's it for the traps and the main deck. Let's go on to the extra deck. So first off, we're playing 2 copies of our main boss monster, Mirrorjade the Iceblade Dragon. He's probably your primary target for an Albaz fusion with an opponent's extra deck monster, since he's Albaz and any fusion, synchro, Xyz, or link monster. He has a non-target banish quick effect, so you can get rid of problematic monsters, even those that cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects. And he's got some built-in protection as well, in the sense that if he leaves the field by an opponent's card effect, which actually does include being fused away or being kaiju'd, he wipes your opponent's monsters in the end phase. So it is helpful to have him out. Your opponent has to think very carefully about how they're going to deal with Mirrorjade. Next, we're playing 2 copies of Albion. So this is probably what you're going to fuse into first off your branded fusion with your Albaz and Lubellion. Also on summon, he lets you fuse by banishing fusion materials, and also is a great target for Mirrorjade to send to activate Mirrorjade's effect, since in the end phase he lets you add to your hand or set a branded spell or trap. So most commonly you're going to end up getting branded in red, or maybe even Branded Retribution, since those are good cards to have set during your opponent's turn. We're also playing 1 Lubellion, the Searing Dragon, to round off the main branded fusion line. You'll primarily go into Albion, then Lubellion, and then be able to set up your field really well. His discard also is quite useful. It lets you seed your graveyard with cards that have good graveyard effects, such as Bystial Saronir, Despian Tragedy, and so on. So a pretty good card to have. Lastly, for the Albaz fusions, we're playing 1 Rindbrumm, the Striking Dragon, and 1 Titaniklad. I never actually end up summoning Rindbrumm. He's primarily a card that I send to trigger Mirrorjade's effect, but he has a great quick effect in the grave, in that you can target both himself and 1 Fallen of Albaz, banish one of them, and summon the other. So you basically end up banishing this, summoning the Albaz, and then getting Albaz's on-summon fusion, basically as an interruption during your opponent's turn. Now, Titaniklad, he's one of your, high attack monsters. So on summon, he gains attack based on the original levels of the monsters used for his summon times 100. So, Albaz is 4, and if basically you can do the math, you can make him pretty big. He's 2500 base, so it helps get over problematic monsters. Importantly, he's also unaffected by extra deck monster effects the turn he's summoned, so he's got some built-in protection there. We're also playing 1 Granguignol, the Dusk Dragon. He's your primary target to fuse from Cartesia's effect. He also lets you send monsters from deck or extra deck to graveyard, so again, you can help seed your graveyard there, and also has an interruption whenever your opponent tries to special summon. Next, we're playing a small Super Poly package, or targets for Super Poly. We're playing 1 Garura, 1 Mud Dragon of the Swamp, and 1 Predaplant, Dragostepelia. Garura is also a good target to send off of Granguignol's effect, since it lets you draw a card whenever you send to the grave. But really, these are just various options for you to Super Poly into, depending on what your opponent has on the field. For the Synchros, we're playing 2 pretty powerful monsters, 1 Bystial Dispater and 1 Chaos Angel. Again, these are really great to go in for the kill. Bystial Despoter lets you summon a banished monster. So that it could be an Albaz, it could even be a Mirrorjade, depending on what you have in there. And Chaos Angel on summon has a target banish, and also has two pretty powerful built-in protective effects. So if you fuse into him with using light attribute synchro material, all your synchro monsters are unaffected by your opponent's activated monster effects. And if you use a dark synchro material, and then all your monsters cannot be destroyed by battle. So given that we'll primarily be fusing into him with one of the 4-star tuner ladies, Quem or Cartesia, plus a bestial, you almost always will get both of his protection effects. So he's a very powerful defensive card, and obviously a very powerful offensive card as well. To round out the extra deck, we're playing one copy of Hieratic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres. 2 dragon monsters, the deck's full of dragons. This also will help trigger Bystial Druiswurm's effect, since you would use him as link material and send him to the grave. And also has a great interruption. During your opponent's turn, you contribute this, bounce on your opponent's cards, and then summon a dragon monster from your deck, because you tributed this. So again, another way to summon an Albaz and get his interruption. Lastly, one SP Little Knight, because this card is crazy. It actually works really well with the Branded Regain and the ability to recycle cards from the Banished Zone. Great card. Again, you're probably almost always going to have a fusion monster on the field. That's why I actually took out IP Masquerena from the extra deck, since people tend to go IP and then during your opponent's turn, quick effect link summon into SP. But given that you almost always will have some fusion monster on the field, you get his on summon banish effect. So that's it for the deck profile. Feel free to leave comments and suggestions for how you folks might change this deck. I have played around with various different versions of this deck, both synchro focused and fusion focused. So curious to see what folks think. All right, that's Prince from GG and Prince, signing off.